Good morning and welcome to Rising. We have another great show for you today. It is Tuesday morning. Hello, Lindsay. How are you?
A good cold Tuesday morning, but
Yeah.
I saw the alert on the weather app that we're getting in the 70s next week in DC. I don't know about y'all back at home, but that makes me very happy. I know it makes you extremely happy, so you can show all those pearly whites.
A lot of back and forth weather in the last few days.
The dramatic change is not great.
It was
but
snowing yesterday. I got snowed on. I was walking to lunch. I don't usually go to a fancy lunch, but I went to a fancy lunch yesterday. A friend of mine had his mother visiting from England.
Oh, wow.
And we took a walk and it snowed on us.
A friend of yours decided to introduce you to his mother?
Yeah,
No,
we
I'm
like
joking.
to meet
I'm
the
joking.
moms. We like to meet the moms.
I'm
When my
joking,
mom comes
Robby.
to town, you can meet her. It's a lot.
I want to be invited to dinner with your mom. She's
Yeah.
come to town twice already, I think, since I've been here.
Yeah.
All right, the third one I want to be invited. Coming up on Rising, Secretary of State Marco Rubio faced heat for his comments on the Trump administration's rationale for striking Iran.
Plus, First Lady Melania Trump made history by taking the gavel at the United Nations Security Council, but some on the left weren't happy about that or anything else in their lives.
And the Department of Education hung a banner of the late conservative activist Charlie Kirk, which really sparked some online debate. But first, Robby, what's on your radar?
Oh, I am so entertained. The House Oversight Committee released more than 8 hours of testimony yesterday depicting Bill and Hillary Clinton testifying as to their relationship or lack thereof with Jeffrey Epstein. Guess what? I spent my entire evening watching it. The entire thing, the whole thing. I popped some popcorn, I uncorked a bottle of wine, I adjusted the speed to 2 times faster, and I took it all in. And I was highly entertained, as I said. Mostly by Hillary, who I'll turn to in a minute. But as for Bill Clinton, the former president, who's almost 80 years old and, to be clear, is very much showing his age, which he acknowledged, he had flown on Epstein's plane at least 17 times. He denied, however, ever visiting Epstein's island or having any knowledge of Epstein's crimes or participating in any illicit activity with underage girls, though he did admit he received a back rub from a flight attendant on one of the flights. Now, probably the biggest news was that Bill Clinton stated unequivocally under oath and on the record that he spoke to Donald Trump about Epstein in the early 2000s and that Bill Clinton has no reason to believe Trump knew anything about Epstein's crimes, nor was Trump involved in Epstein's crimes in any way. Clinton stated that Trump said they had a falling out over land deal. Take a look.
I hate this, but because I don't believe I should inject anything. But I do not want to leave the impression, since there was no follow-up question. The president never, this is 20-something years ago, never said anything to me to make me think he was involved in anything improper with regard to Epstein either. He just didn't. He just said we were friends, and then we had a falling out over a land deal, property deal.
Hillary Clinton's deposition was also informative. Hillary came across as very sharp and intelligent, candid, and I say that as someone who was utterly opposed to her candidacy for president and has openly criticized her as a political figure for years. I even appreciated Hillary getting a little feisty with Lauren Boebert, who shared a photo of Clinton at the deposition publicly on social media, despite an order that this be a closed-door hearing. And that irritated Clinton because Clinton, had pressed for a public hearing, so it was understandable that she wanted those rules followed since Comer opted for a private hearing. Take a look.
Photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying from inside this room. Can you please advise me as to whether or not that's permissible and consistent with the rules, particularly given that we have asked for a public hearing? If there are photos that are being released of the secretary as she is testifying, can you please explain how that
I'm done with this. If you guys are doing that, I am done. You can hold me in contempt from now until the cows come home. This is just typical behavior.
We will go off the record.
Oh, for heaven's sake.
So I would like to understand how that's permissible.
Before the hearing was,
It doesn't matter. We all are abiding by the same rules.
I will take that down.
Yeah,
So
well.
I would like to take a break at this moment.
Yeah.
Honestly, I see Clinton's point, but the deposition did continue, and now the entire video is available for your perusal. For her part, Clinton denied ever meeting Epstein even once. She said that while she wanted to be helpful to the committee, she had absolutely no information to offer them. She answered the same questions over and over again for 4 hours. She didn't meet Epstein. She didn't know about his crimes. Please direct your inquiries to the Department of Justice. Hillary also got, to be fair, the better of Representative Nancy Mace, who tried to grill the former First Lady about her relationship with Trump's Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, someone Clinton met because Lutnick's firm had lost hundreds of people on 9/11. Mace tried to suggest that through Lutnick, Clinton had some kind of Epstein fundraising connection, but Clinton pointed out that connection would be between Lutnick and Epstein, not between Clinton and Epstein, so probably they should ask him about it.
You asked the question. I'm going to answer your question.
Now you're gonna yell
This
at
was
me?
what I spent
You're
my
going to yell at
time
me.
doing.
I'm a
I
survivor
spent
trying to look out for other
Well,
survivors trying to
and
get to the
I
bottom
was
of it.
taking care
You
of
waited
the
6
people who
months to
lost
get here today.
3,000
6 months,
lives
and now you're being
at World
defiant
Trade
and
Center.
indignant today.
You asked me
I
about
have met
Howard
with Epstein
Lutnick.
survivors. I'm a survivor myself. You have emails. You've denied that Jeffrey Epstein, that you tried to get Jeffrey Epstein to give money to you.
I did
but
not.
Howard Lutnick was
If
used
you
to
have an
get
email
money.
with me asking Jeffrey
I
Epstein
have
for
an
money,
email from Howard Lutnick sending it to Jeffrey Epstein and his people to raise money for
I don't
you
know about
for an event, an intimate event for you at his offices
Well,
at Cantor Fitzgerald. You're
look,
going to sit
if
here
you-
today
if you would
and
let me
and
finish.
upset
Once again, point to Hillary. Now, after sitting for 4 hours and 8 minutes, she did eventually become even more frustrated than that.
You have said that you have never been to Mr. Epstein's island. Is that correct?
You know
You've never
what?
been.
I am so tired of answering that question. If you have one scintilla of evidence to the contrary, put it forward. I have never been on his island, period. I've never been in his homes, his offices, his anything. So I don't know how many times you have to say the same thing over and over and over again. And I just am struggling with the relevance of all of this. But no, I never have been.
So there it is. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton answered questions for hours about what they know or what they don't know. What the Democrats are going to do next, I can guarantee you, is demand that Trump do the same. And frankly, that's what this was really about. And supporters of the president really got to start asking questions about whether this ever expanding inquiry is about getting at the truth, or is it about looking for dirt on Trump, dirt that I do not believe exists. And Bill Clinton doesn't believe it exists either.
Okay.
Fun stuff.
It was quite entertaining, and I really appreciated the disposition of Hillary Clinton throughout the entire.
Yeah, and I say that as someone who never voted for Hillary Clinton, doesn't support Hillary Clinton, has opposed her. But I'm not alone. If you look at social media, every conservative I know is saying, okay, Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace embarrassed themselves, and she
Lauren Boebert in particular, because she
Yeah.
left the meeting, and I remember she was on camera saying, like, I took that picture before it started. I was granted
What are you
permission.
doing?
So she just made up a whole lie
Hillary
and was
wanted
confident.
to be public.
Right,
They
she-
wanted the whole thing
And
public.
Lauren Boebert was so confident to then see her in the, like, we have the tape of her, like, cowering. I'm sorry, I'll delete it now. That is embarrassing. The whole thing is embarrassing.
And then Nancy Mace was like, again, an email that Lutnick sent to Epstein.
It doesn't make any sense.
And then she's like, well, but I'm a survivor, so you can't. What are you doing, lady?
Okay, now to scale back from the antics of Nancy Mace, perhaps, and Lauren Boebert, people wanted transparency. They wanted to understand in detail the connections between Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton. So in my mind, that doesn't seem partisan. Also, if Lutnick may be deposed, that doesn't seem partisan to me. So if Trump is asked to be deposed next, this cannot be all in you can't make a city out of a couple of bricks. That it all was leading to that happening. That can happen and we can be done with it.
That's why they did this.
No, that can happen and we can be done with it, and Robbie. We can get the same type of answers and everyone can be done. That's what we can't avoid the inevitable.
No, I know. Bill and Hillary agreed to do this to help the Democrats in their argument that they have to get Trump to do this too. I absolutely believe it. And Hillary knew she could do it confidently because she has nothing to hide. She's never met him on this front.
I don't know if they died on the sword for this. I think they did it because
Well, they're not dying because this doesn't look bad for them.
Right. I think they did it
incriminating
because they
information.
were like, listen, even though we are not tied to Epstein in this way, particularly Hillary, we're still going to come forward and get this done because if you guys are asking for anybody extremely powerful or anybody extremely well off that may have connected to Epstein in any real way that may tie into a crime, let's transparently let everyone know that is not us. And I think the president should do the same thing. And then the 2 million files left over should be released.
Yes,
and we
they
can be
gotta come out. I
done.
agree. They
That's
gotta
what.
come out.
That's so you can't be frustrated before it's complete. The law requires this to be completely
yes,
seen through.
I know.
So the
It has to
president
be
should be
seen.
deposed, and the 2 million pages should come out, and then we will put it to bed like you want to. If you want your goal to be reached, we have to do everything required of
There's
this
one other
investigation.
thing I need to say on this before we go. I found her interest. She was questioned. Again, she never met Epstein. She's never been to the island. She doesn't really know anything. But she was questioned about, and she was willing to engage this line of questioning. She thought it was interesting, too, his connections to intelligence, the possibility that a foreign government was using him. She didn't say, that's malarkey, I don't know anything about that. She said, well, if that was, that she had no information about it, but she wouldn't put it past foreign governments, basically.
Right.
So it was an interesting...
So some good information came out of this then. It was worth it.
Yes. As I've said, the intelligence stuff has always been the most fertile grounds for an Epstein inquiry, not the sex trafficking cabal, of which the evidence is slight. The intelligence stuff, the financial crimes, more solid. And yeah, man, it was like seeing a fan favorite character from a former season. God, I miss the old girl. Anyway, till the cows come home. Great line. Secretary of State Marco Rubio receiving backlash even from Trump supporters over his explanation of why the U.S. attacked Iran. What he said coming up. We'll be right back.
Secretary of State Marco Rubio lighting up social media yesterday after he said this ahead of a briefing for congressional leaders. Take a listen.
There absolutely was an imminent threat, and the imminent threat was that we knew that if Iran was attacked, and we believed they would be attacked, that they would immediately come after us. And we were not going to sit there and absorb a blow before we responded, because the Department of War assessed that if we did that, if we waited for them to hit us first after they were attacked, and by someone else, Israel attacked them, they hit us first, and we waited for them to hit us, we would suffer more casualties and more deaths. We went proactively in a defensive way to prevent them from inflicting higher damage. Had we not done so, there would have been hearings on Capitol Hill about how we knew that this was going to happen, and we didn't act preemptively to prevent more casualties and more loss of life.
Now, that explanation for our involvement in the strikes against Iran didn't sit well with many people. Mehdi Hassan writing on X, quote, "This is the most insane and absurd definition of a, quote, imminent threat I have ever heard in my life. Our ally and proxy, Israel, that we arm and fund, was about to illegally attack Iran, so we joined in on the attack because that illegal attack would have led to an attack on us." Piers Morgan echoing that confusion in his own post, writing, "What? So the preemptive threat was based on prior knowledge that presumably Israel was going to attack Iran? This is nuts." Perhaps the most telling online take came from staunch Trump supporter Matt Walsh.
Walsh responded directly to that clip, writing this. So he's flat out telling us that we're in a war with Iran because Israel forced our hand. This is basically the worst possible thing he could have said. It's one of a series of posts from Walsh yesterday criticizing the Trump administration's messaging around the strikes. Earlier in the day, he wrote in part, "So far, we've heard that although we killed the whole Iranian regime, this was not a regime change war. And although we obliterated their nuclear program, we had to do this because of their nuclear program. And although Iran was not planning any attacks on the U.S., they also might have been, depending on who you ask. The messaging on this thing is, to put it mildly, confusing." That criticism caught the attention of the White House and Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt, who responded directly to Walsh in a lengthy post outlining the goals of Operation Epic Fury and summing it up with this: while Operation Midnight Hammer did obliterate Iran's major nuclear sites, the regime was fully committed to rebuilding their nuclear program, and they refused to make a deal despite months of extensive talks and good faith efforts by President Trump's top negotiators. Simply put, the terrorist Iranian regime would not say yes to peace. Yeah, I share Matt Walsh's frustration on this. He's someone who is close to my perspective on foreign policy for the most part. Look, that this was preemptive and defensive because Israel was going to attack them and they were going to respond to Israel attacking them. That's not defensive. We arm Israel. We let them do, like, they're our ally. So then it's like a World War I situation where, because Serbia kills Franz Ferdinand, and then Germany and Austria declare war on Russia, and then Russia declares war on Germany, and then France declares, well, okay. So we have these entangling alliances. So we have to fight a regime change war in Iran because Israel was going to attack them. And you're telling me that Congress doesn't have to vote on this? That doesn't make any sense. The argument for Congress not voting on it is, if it is truly defensive, then the president can take authority to defend the nation without immediately consulting Congress. But it's clearly not that situation. Israel was doing this. So what, Israel has replaced the Congress? We don't vote on things because Israel decided to go to war with Iran? I really hate that. That really is me at my most critical of Israel, that we don't get to do things the way our Constitution prescribes, the way our founders prescribe, because Israel wants to attack Iran, if it's such a good idea, we can vote on it. But we don't get to vote on it because they're doing whatever they want. It's wrong. It is wrong to me.
The messaging around this whole thing is so chaotic. I know yesterday you were calling for, like, give me an explanation that makes sense.
Yeah.
Surely what Rubio had to say on camera.
Well, I think he explained what the real explanation is, and it's a very unsatisfying.
It's not satisfying. So an ABC reporter asked him as well. I mean, they asked several questions yesterday, but one of them asked Speaker Johnson, don't you think Congress should have authorized this war? And Speaker Johnson responded by saying, this is an operation in its scope. And the way that they keep using operation,
not a war,
and that's it. Let me finish. I think that
regime,
the Secretary of Defense Hegseth called this a war yesterday in his press briefing. The president has described this as a war. And so, you know, for Rubio and everyone to have mixed messaging when they're talking about this, it's not making sense because we are effectively in a war. There was no threat. And when they bring up the nuclear capabilities, again, for anybody who could understand how uranium is stockpiled and then turned into a nuclear weapon, it's not something that Iran has the capabilities to rebuild in 7 months. So if we obliterated the nuclear site, they weren't going to be able to rebuild in 7 months. No, experts say 2035. I looked deeply into it to make some kind of sense out of the imminent threat. They weren't even close. And they might have had other weapons, but these are not nuclear weapons around the country. I also think there's a whole Netanyahu factor that people are not talking about. There's reports that he's been talking to President Trump for months. And they had a long-standing back and forth telling him his objectives, that I'm going to fire on Israel I'm going to fire on Iran regardless. And so this has been the conversation since President Trump has said he was trying to have diplomatic conversations with Iran, that Netanyahu never wanted that to happen. And so if that's the case, and he's been adamant in these meetings we've seen him have with the president over the last few months, well, that's problematic that another leader is then coming to our president and saying what their top priority is, and we're not considering what our Congress's top priority is, what Americans' top priority is, and there's no imminent threat to America. And so I think that these are really big deals that the president needs to answer to, because especially the fact that we're not taking into consideration there is a Congress for a reason, for oversight of this kind of thing. And this is actually a war. It's not an operation. It's endless. The president said yesterday it could go a couple weeks, or it could go on and on. And so now we are effectively in a war.
Right. One that nobody voted for. Again, if it's just about taking out their nuclear capabilities and whatever, we have to do that every 6 months because then they start, attaching sticks to stones again or something. Fine, but just tell me that that's what we're doing. We also took out all the leadership of the country. We killed the Ayatollah. So, and I was listening to Marsha Blackburn, Tennessee senator, on News Nation this morning while we were getting our makeup on, and she was saying, hopes the people rise up democratically. I hope that too, but that just always sounds so naive to me. Why do we think that's what's going to happen? I think the best case scenario is that a new hardliners come to power still that are maybe not as old and insane as the Ayatollah, and they'll still be repressive and horrible, but maybe they'll get along. They'll be more willing to negotiate with Trump. That seems like a best case scenario, and I don't know. I really don't know. I would like to be sold the way it is required by our Constitution. Go to my member of Congress, my senator, and get him to vote for it.
Now, the First Lady made history yesterday, gaveling the UN Security Council into session, but she's catching flack online from the left. Don't go anywhere. First Lady Melania Trump making a little history Monday as she gavelled the UN Security Council meeting into order on Monday. She's the first presidential spouse to open the United States presidency of the council, a position that rotates between the countries on the council monthly.
The First Lady was there to preside over a meeting to address children in conflict around the world, but her message was overshadowed slightly by the recent strikes on Iran, and she acknowledged those who were killed in those strikes in her remarks. Take a listen.
My heartfelt condolences to the families who have lost their heroes, who sacrificed their lives for freedom. The U.S. stands with all of the children throughout the world. I hope soon peace will be yours.
Melania received praise from many conservatives online. Conservative content creator Eric Dougherty wrote on X in part, "She is so good at representing America. Class is back."
But journalist Adam Schwartz seemed baffled by the First Lady even being there, writing in a post of his own, Melania Trump is chairing a UN Security Council meeting. I'm not joking. The U.S. currently holds the presidency of the council, and that's who Trump chose as chair. And Mohammed Safa, the director for UN-linked organization Patriotic Vision, took it a step further, writing, the fact that U.S. First Lady Melania Trump chaired a UN Security Council meeting on, quote, children in conflict while the U.S. and Israel killing children in Lebanon and Gaza and murdered 165 schoolgirls in Iran is the most hypocritical thing we have seen in the history of the Security Council.
Put away the haterade, is what I would say to that.
You married Jay Blige?
What is wrong with Melania chairing this meeting and making some perfectly benign remarks about how we hope children can live in peace? It's fine. Who cares?
Look,
what's the problem?
What
is the problem? There is no problem.
I'm a proponent of people, especially women, doing as many jobs as they like.
Yes.
I'm happy that she's getting.
I support.
Robbie
women.
should get no job.
Let's stand for women.
No, but I'm happy that this was a historic good moment for her. If that's what she wants to do, congratulations. The timing of it. If Trump appoints who speaks right now, it's not a good time. Read the room. You can do as many jobs as you want. You can hit the gavel, be great. The timing of it does not make sense when you're there for children, education, and technology. Trump wants to cut funding for our Department of Education. There's a beef going on within our government over technology with somebody who wants to protect American people, the OpenAI founder, beefing with Anthropic, and the children in conflict. These are the three topics she's talking about, and we are in complete disarray. We just sent a bomb over to Iran that landed on a schoolhouse. So at the same time, the conflict, when she's going there banging the gavel, the U.S. can't really stand firm on the pillars that she's speaking to. And I just think that we need to think about the timing. She could have done this in a month.
We're the great Satan.
No, a lot of countries are messed up, certainly, but the U.S. certainly has its transgressions. You like to do this.
We just gotta
you like to do this comparison and contrast. Oh my God, we're not China.
America?
We're not China. I'm happy to be American. I have an American flag hanging out of the house that I grew up in.
Yeah.
Certainly proud to be American. But I want to tell you that it is a bad time. You have to know timing. It makes sense if the country is going through a interesting moment, to say the least, that maybe it's not the time that the wife of the president who's making these firm decisions says she's standing on the pillars of education, technology, and specifically children in conflict.
Children
like
in
the day
Gaza
after,
are suffering because of the Hamas terrorist group.
We're not talking about Gaza. I'm talking about Iran. And you just said it wasn't an imminent threat, so we didn't have to send that bomb over there on Saturday. Yes? So if it wasn't an imminent threat and you're still discussing that you're not sold on the fact that it's an imminent threat, but the wife of the person who made that decision is now talking about how much she wants to protect children in conflict, you wouldn't say this is a conflicting message?
I think we need to follow our Constitution, and our Constitution requires us to vote on this kind of thing. So that's why I am skeptical of the effort. I don't think it was preemptive in nature. I think taking out Ayatollah Khamenei and his henchmen is a worthwhile moral goal, and even, unfortunately, frankly, at the loss of some innocent life. It is obviously very sad that a schoolhouse was hit. Obviously, we can't take the position that no amount of civilian life loss is acceptable, because then these reprehensible terrorist figures will just surround them, as they do in Gaza, will surround themselves with children, will embed themselves as deeply in will hold up children as shields, and hope that stops us from doing anything. So we can't be,
Melania is in front of nations, global nations.
She's calling
and a lot of global nations disagree with what we're doing right now. A lot of people that were part of the Iran nuclear deal that Obama pushed through wanted us to stay in it. And we didn't because of President Trump. And so now we're in this conundrum with Iran when the deal was working just fine. A lot of those people sitting around Melania wanted to stay in that deal. Okay. And she's preaching.
The U.S. and its Western allies are not the dominant cause of suffering in this world. That is the result of Islamic terrorists and China and Russia. Those are the causes of suffering in this world by and large. And we should start from there and proceed accordingly.
Up next, I'll dive into the deeper into the growing frustration from the left and right over Trump administration's messaging around Iran. So we'll talk about that more. Stick around for my lens.
All right, Lindsay, what's in your lens today?
Let's get to it. President Trump says this war won't be endless. He says it could last 4 to 5 weeks or, quote, far longer. And that right there is the tension, because if you listen closely, the mission keeps moving. members of Congress are struggling to pin down the objective. Here's what Virginia Senator Mark Warner had to say.
There was no imminent threat to the United States of America by the Iranians. There was a threat to Israel. But if we equate a threat to Israel as the equivalent of an imminent threat to the United States, then we are in uncharted territory.
He went on to say this.
We have seen the goals for this operation change now, I believe, 4 or 5 times. A week ago, it was about the Iranian nuclear capacity. A few days later, it was about taking out the ballistic missiles.
Warner continued that then it was, quote, in the president's own words, about regime change. And now we hear it's about sinking the Iranian fleet. That's not coming from the political left alone. There's frustration inside of his own MAGA base. The same voters who embraced, quote, America first and a promise to end forever wars, not start new ones. Here's what we do know. The president says the U.S. is seeking to destroy Iran's ballistic missile capabilities and Navy, its ability to develop nuclear weapons, and its support for proxy groups. He argues the broader purpose is to protect the U.S. and its allies. Take a look.
An Iranian regime armed with long-range missiles and nuclear weapons would be an intolerable threat to the Middle East, but also to the American people.
Now, that's the case being made publicly, but behind closed doors, administration officials acknowledge U.S. intelligence did not show Iran was preparing a preemptive strike against the United States. The threat described was broader, regional, not even imminent. Even the long-range missile argument that has caveats. A Defense Intelligence Agency report from last year assessed Iran could develop an intercontinental ballistic missile by 2035, quote, should Tehran decide to pursue the capability. That's conditional. That's not tomorrow. And then there's that contradiction. After launching strikes, the president urged Iranians to, quote, take your government back, widely interpreted as a call for regime change. Yet now, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the goal is not regime change. And Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the president won't, quote, rule out anything, including ground forces. Trump himself told the New York Post he's not ruling out boots on the ground. So what is it? Add that to the global ripple effects, loss of life, including American soldiers, oil prices are climbing, evacuations across the Gulf, and the stakes expand far beyond Washington talking points. President Trump once said, quote, so-called nation builders wrecked far more nations than they built. Now he's in a war of his own choosing without clearly defining what victory looks like or what Iran looks like when this is all said and done. If the mission is defense, say that. If it's deterrence, define it. If it's regime change, then own that. But shifting the goals in real time while we're all watching, while lives and markets hang in the balance, is not a good strategy. It's uncertainty. And uncertainty is a dangerous place to wage war.
Well, look, in my statements earlier, I made clear my shared skepticism about the goals here, the justifications, the lack of a vote bothering me. But for the sake of argument, let's play devil's advocate. And I think what someone who defends this would say is, well, no, we were not in imminent danger. I mean, everyone has to admit that we were not in imminent danger from Iran. But Israel is our ally. Again, I'm playing devil's advocate. This is not necessarily my perspective, but Israel is our ally. Israel shares our values. They are threatened, perhaps not directly, immediately by Iran, but Iran has said death to America, death to Israel. Iran's leadership has a stated goal of wiping Israel off the map. Iran funds terrorist groups that have attacked Israel, including Hamas in the past. An enemy of Israel. It's Lord of the Rings. It's Gondor is under threat. They call for aid. Rohan comes to the battle. Like, we're just going to let them come under attack when we can. I mean, they went and did this. we're like participating in it, but they're doing it themselves. And we're supposed to say, no, you're abandoned. Good luck in this effort against a oppressive, theocratic, Islamic, extremist, authoritarian regime that's wants you dead, and after you're dead, if they possibly could harm us, they would. I don't know. I guess maybe we say take them out.
Well, I think there are two options
Right?
here. I think there's another alternative option, I should say. The option that the president took, and then there's the option of following through with your campaign promise if you're the president, which was America first. So you consider America's needs first and then move forward with everything secondary. And part of that would be to take your ego out of it and look at things like the Iran nuclear deal, which stopped Iran from building nuclear weapons for years.
We tried.
No,
Trump's
President Trump
No.
ripped up the deal.
Okay.
And
Get a
then
better one.
it doesn't matter. You don't rip it up with no plan. That's the problem. We went into
You said no
Venezuela.
plan, but he has a plan.
No, the plan is bombing and going to war.
He's been
No,
negotiating
for
with them.
a short few
and
months.
They are not.
He bombed them in last summer. That's not negotiating. Then asked them to come to the table. Like this has been. He tore up the agreement in 2018, I believe. So
Well, he didn't make that agreement, Obama did.
exactly, but he tore it up with no follow through.
The follow-through was, and now
follow-through-
we will make. Now you will sign a new agreement, and they said no, and then he said, okay, then you're gonna all get killed. And he did, and he followed through.
Independent analysis.
Isn't it amazing to see follow through on a credible
No,
threat?
not if you're losing American lives, and not if you're losing civilian lives in Iran. Now,
I think it's
if
bad
you
to
look at
threaten and then do nothing.
No, I think that what happened was, if people understand and unpack the Iran nuclear deal that was working and implemented in 2015, it stopped Iran from building these nuclear weapons because they got rid of 90% of the uranium. They weren't just stockpiling, and they kept 3% to power their nation. And so they agreed on that, and all nonpartisan groups were looking at this and saying they're abiding by it. I believe in 2017, even the president said, yes, technically they're abiding by it before he ripped it to shreds, but he wanted them to do more. It still reached the goal. If the goal of this war is to stop them from having nuclear capabilities, it reached that goal. And so the fact that he ripped it up, made no plan that was executed well, criticized Obama before that plan was in place and said anybody who goes to war cannot negotiate, is a poor, ineffective leader, and then now is in war, which I feel is poor and
They also
ineffective.
want the regime to fall, and so the previous agreement.
So just say
helps
that
the regime.
No, just say that's what you want then. He said he's not about regime change and he doesn't want to go into other countries, and that's not his goal of his administration as he campaigned a little more than a year ago. So if that was really your plan, not only did you completely lie, but who's voting for anything of the MAGA base in the MAGA world if you have now lied on a multitude of issues? People are looking at it and saying, okay, so what do you stand for? You said you were going to fix the economy. Here we are broke. You said that you were going to bring prices down. Here, oil prices go up because of this war. You said that you were going to not be involved in foreign conflicts. You done took out Maduro and have no plan over there. And you took out Iran's leadership and have no plan over there.
Do not play into your desire to be a peace president.
And he wants to win the Nobel Peace Prize. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. He says he's ended more wars. He's also ignited more drama across the world than I think any president in recent history. And it's, it's just looking at what he campaigned on, it doesn't align.
Israel was already in conflict with Iran vis-a-vis Hamas and other Hezbollah, etc. Our allies are under attack by proxy groups. These proxy groups also hate America, and they're funded by Iran.
So let me ask you, do you not trust the Board of Peace that the president also championed and implemented? But the Board of Peace, we're in the second phase. So you want to give Trump a trophy for ending the conflict between Israel and Gaza. Let me finish.
Well,
you want to give him a trophy.
When did I say I want to give Trump a trophy?
Because you said he should win the Nobel Peace Prize multiple times. That's an award, trophy, whatever word you want to use. You think that he should have won it because of ending wars like that. His next step in ending that war was to create a peace board. He created the peace board that now is calming things in that region, and you're still using the fact that Iran supported Hamas as a fact why Israel should attack Iran right now, even though there's a peace board created by our president to move forward in that conflict. You're all about supporting a new conflict when the peace board of world leaders is trying to come to terms with peace in that region.
Peace doesn't mean we sit idly by while our enemies kill us. Like,
what was Iran doing imminently?
We're not required to submit to fall upon our enemies' swords.
Nobody was. You're throwing out random terms with no facts. Who was killing who? What actually happened in recent days that caused us to go to war in either Israel or the United States? Tell me.
I'm playing devil's advocate here. Israel, our ally, We're not, I mean, this is what you talk about in Europe, that we don't turn our back on our allies. Even though Russia's invasion of Ukraine has nothing to do with us and is not our fight, and it doesn't change U.S. safety or security one iota, whether the westernmost part of Ukraine is Ukrainian territory or Russian territory, does not matter for U.S. security whatsoever. And yet we're giving them hundreds of billions of dollars. We organize Europe to give more dollars for their defense because you know what? Russia is a rogue state that invaded Ukraine unjustly. I recognize that, and it is not being reasonable, and is not interested in negotiating. That is clearer.
I love that example.
Just as
I love that example.
We are working with our European allies to do what we can to hold Russia at bay, we are working with Israel to hold Islamic terrorists at bay.
Okay.
And the regime of Iran is an Islamic terrorist regime.
And I love
That's
that
the
example
argument.
because I totally stand by what I said. So in the same way that Russia agitated and was the aggressor and attacked Ukraine on its soil and started a war, if Iran had done that, we can also supply Israel with the manpower or the facility or troops or whatever they needed, the weapons to fight back. But that didn't happen. Iran didn't get on Israel's soil and start a war. That's what Russia did. That's what Russia did.
Hamas
for Ukraine, and so we
Hamas
supported
is a
them.
proxy group of
No,
Iran.
but we have the
Houthis are a
peace
proxy
board.
group of
I know we
Iran.
have the peace
I mean-
board that is now in the second phase of ending this conflict in Gaza and Israel. So I don't understand why
You're
you're acting
talking
like
me
we're
into
in the
supporting
middle
this.
of it.
What if Trump says, fund our enemies and we will kill you? That
No.
seems like a perfectly fine place for American policy.
You ever heard of the
Policy
thing
to begin
drastic times, drastic measures? It wasn't a drastic time. So we took a drastic measure unnecessarily.
I would rather be go overboard in defense of America and its allies than be a little reluctant to react. And I think many Americans will feel the same, but we shall see.
We'll see.
Up next, the Department of Education hung a Charlie Kirk banner outside its D.C. building. Stay with us. The Department of Education hung a banner of the late conservative activist Charlie Kirk outside its headquarters in Washington, D.C. to celebrate its 250th anniversary. You can see large banners here hanging alongside Catherine Beecher, a 19th century U.S. educator who's remembered as a champion of women's education, and also Booker T. Washington, known for advocating educational rights for black people in post-Civil War America. A banner next to them reads, "Empowering our states to tell the stories of our heroes in American education."
Savannah Newhouse, press secretary for the Department of Education, told The Hill, quote, "We are proud to honor visionary leaders whose contributions have shaped the future of education for generations. Their work reflects Benjamin Franklin's timeless belief that an investment in knowledge pays the best interest." Newhouse adds, quote, "As our country marks a historic 250th milestone, this moment invites us all to join in the pursuit of fostering educational opportunity that empowers every learner to rise, contribute, and help shape a brighter future for generations to come."
The banner featuring Kirk received mixed reaction online. Kevin Roberts, president of the Heritage Foundation, responded to critics asking why the department chose a banner of Kirk, writing on X, "Perhaps because Charlie Kirk did more in his 31 years of life to educate young Americans than the DOE has in its 47 years of existence."
Independent journalist Mehdi Hassan, however, wrote, "First Democratic presidential candidate who publicly pledges to tear down this particular banner on day one of his or her administration gets an immediate bump in their presidential primary polling." This new banner display comes a month after a large banner of Trump was unveiled at the Department of Justice.
Charlie Kirk founded Turning Point USA, a conservative nonprofit organization that advocates for and promotes conservative politics among young people. He was shot and killed last September while speaking at a campus event at Utah Valley University. What is the? It's
this is a joke. This is a
What?
joke. I'm not going to listen to you say what's the problem. You understand what's the problem.
There is
He's a
not
man
a
who called college a scam, and he's now hanging next to Booker T. Washington, a man who dedicated his life to education, someone who dedicated his life to making education accessible. This man wrote a book about college being a scam. And the Department of Education is in shambles because of this administration, and he was on board with that. I just don't understand. You're rewriting history and using taxpayer dollars. No, my college education is the whole reason why I got into broadcast journalism.
But college, we have a number of criticisms.
He dropped out of college. He doesn't think that traditional education is relevant. These people, other people beside
So did
him,
Mark Zuckerberg.
fought
So
for
did tons of people who've gone on to build
people
great
fought
things.
for people to have access to education, like formal education. Okay, he published a book called "The College Scam." all right? I don't know that he belongs on the Department of Education, a building that promotes the education system that we currently have.
A building that has not raised reading and math scores at all, despite spending obscene amounts of money. A building that is entirely unnecessary and should be, you want to rip down Charlie Kirk's poster? Fine, rip down the whole building, and then we can talk. This is an inspirational figure for millions of young people, young men around the country, just as Booker T. Washington and those other figures
Catherine Beecher, they're not partisan figures, though. They literally fought for education and access for all people to be equal and equity. Charlie Kirk was a partisan figure. So I don't understand why he's hanging next to these people. Catherine Beecher fought for women to access education. Booker T. Washington fought for civil rights. What? What's partisan? Do you not want women to be educated? That's what Catherine Beecher fought for.
God, because I want Charlie Kirk. Because I think it's fine for Charlie Kirk to be recognized.
Why does that make sense there? Charlie Kirk is partisan.
Oh, how
no,
ridiculous.
Is Charlie Kirk partisan?
Yes, but
Okay,
those people had other partisan, had political views of their own.
No.
What do you mean no?
Look in a history book. These people dedicated their lives to fighting for education. Booker T. Washington was not trying to be partisan. He was trying to create equality. Okay, in the future and right now, we're going to look at Charlie Kirk as controversial. You could revere that man for the rest of your life. The fact still remains. The things that he said were very controversial. I don't care about at the time. If I'm looking at Booker T. Washington and the history book shows us, and he fought for education for people of color. If I'm looking at Catherine Beecher and she fought for education for all women, these are not controversial topics. I don't care if they were controversial during a time where rights were suppressed.
Conservatives to have some kind of representation on campus for their free speech rights.
No, then you need to put put a Democratic thought leader up there too. Then put a Democratic thought leader up there too. But if we're not doing that, take Charlie Kirk down. Take it down.
Okay, we can put up a Democratic thought
leader. We should.
And who cares?
Then I'll be done. Put Hassan Piker up there. Call it a day.
Put Hassan Piker up
Throw
there?
him up there and call it a day.
Okay, I don't think we should put
Mehdi Hassan up there. Call it a day.
Put America's enemies up there.
Is Mehdi Hassan America's enemy? He's a journalist.
I would absolutely classify Hassan Piker as an enemy of America. He goes to China and cavorts around with the Communist Party and apologize.
Didn't Tucker Carlson go to Russia and sit down and have a full interview?
I didn't say we should put Tucker Carlson up there either.
Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk, same person.
Not even remotely.
Yeah. To me, anybody out there agree? Raise your hand, send me a DM.
Well, maybe
up next,
you need a little bit of educating them.
Justice Neil Gorsuch suggested that the founding fathers drank way too much to meet modern standard for owning guns. We'll be right back after this.
The Supreme Court on Monday heard arguments on a federal law that makes it illegal for habitual drug users to buy or own guns.
The majority of justices from both conservative and liberal sides appeared skeptical towards the Trump administration for defending the prosecution of a Texas man, Ali Daniel Hamani, for allegedly admitting to using weed multiple times a week while owning a gun.
During oral arguments, Justice Neil Gorsuch challenged Principal Deputy Solicitor General Sarah Harris, who pointed to the founding-era restrictions on the rights of habitual drunkards as a historical justification for disarming marijuana users.
Here's what Justice Gorsuch said on the definition of habitual drunkard.
The American Temperance Society back in the day said 8 shots of whiskey a day only made you an occasional drunkard. We have to remember the founding era if you want to invoke the founding era. To be a habitual drunkard, you had to do double that.
Justice Gorsuch added, quote, John Adams took a tankard of hard cider with his breakfast every day. James Madison reportedly drank a pint of whiskey every day. Thomas Jefferson said he wasn't much of a user of alcohol. He only drank 3 to 4 glasses of wine a night. Are they all habitual drunkards who would be properly disarmed for life?
Meanwhile, Justice Samuel Alito and Chief Justice John Roberts appeared to be more aligned to the government's position. Alito said, quote, the most commonly used illegal drugs either had not been invented at the time of adoption of the Second Amendment or the adoption of the 14th Amendment. Heroin was invented in 1874, cocaine, 1855, methamphetamine, 1893, fentanyl, 1959. Marijuana existed, but my understanding, hemp was grown for industrial purposes. My understanding is it was not consumed to any degree by people in the United States until at least the beginning of the 20th century. Notably, Hunter Biden had been convicted on 3 felony charges related to purchasing a gun while struggling with drug addiction, for which he later was pardoned by President Joe Biden, his father.
I think this little law is pretty doomed. Looks like a 7-2.
How do you feel about it?
Good. I support gun rights, and I support drug rights as well.
Do you think people should be autonomous?
Yeah, and again, people, well, there can be some restrictions, obviously, but I don't know that you should be restricted. Maybe you should be restricted. You can be restricted from using a gun while you're on drugs. I don't know. You can be should be restricted from purchasing a gun because you also sometimes use drugs, particularly if your drug is marijuana, which marijuana is not a drug that is particularly likely to make people
like enraged,
violent. Right. Alcohol is, which is why this line of questioning is relevant, because our founders obviously were big supporters of guns.
That was the most surprising
and they
thing.
were drunk
so
all the time.
Drunk. That's a
They
lot
were very,
of shots.
very drunk. And drunk people are rowdier and more prone to violence.
I'm
than
a
people
calm
who do
drunk
drugs.
person.
So am I, but you've known people get angry when they drink.
No, that's
it's
true.
Just more it's not everyone, but it's more common than people who get violent when they. I mean, some people have bad reactions to drug and become psychotic.
Right.
Marijuana heavy use I'm coming to understand, can cause a kind of psychosis for some people, but it's not like alcohol, which alcohol lowers the inhibitions just in general to doing things you wouldn't do otherwise. That's why it makes conversation easier, because it just makes it you're more likely to say things, and then you're like, oh my god, I can't believe I said that later. That's how it works. So
yeah, I think in some ways,
if the founders didn't want restrictions on that, of course they didn't want restrictions on. And I said at the time of the Hunter Biden thing that I don't care about that. It seems a silly thing.
And I think it's directly contradicting the Second Amendment a bit. If you're saying someone's inherently dangerous because they drink alcohol or partake in marijuana, so
Congress
I think
shall make no law is pretty unambiguous wording there as it pertains to our rights to own guns.
So everyone, maybe we'll see. We'll have a win in Robby's world for more freedom, more autonomy.
Love my Supreme Court. Doing me proud. That does it for us on Rising Live. Look out for more exclusive YouTube content coming your way later today, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe to the Hill's YouTube channel so you never miss any content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. See you later.